Most of us find Tallahassee pretty quiet. A tranquil place, bowered by trees, abundant lakes, and filled with upright citizens who bear us no ill will nor would do us harm. But then, we don't always know what's in the verdant woods, or for that matter, what might be buried near that shimmering lake. Which brings us, once again, to the 20-year saga of what is perhaps Tallahassee's most shaking crime stories. One that the Tallahassee Democrats' then news director Jennifer Portman kept alive in people's minds across the decades. It is a story that continues to fascinate crime followers in podcasts, TV series, and now in another true crime literary recounting, the just published Guilty Creatures, Sex, God, and Murder in Tallahassee, Florida. 2899, Signal Publishing 2024, which came out July 23rd. Murder case. A nasty, wicked place. How Mike Williams' body was discovered by the grace of God. Arrest. Oh my gosh. 17 years after Mike Williams' disappearance, wife is charged in his murder. The non-fiction page-turner is written by Baltimore-based crime writer, a psychoanalyst with a PhD from Oxford University, and a day job as a professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art. The author has been called one of the finest practitioners of non-fiction. Brotman's penchant is for telling in carefully researched detail the facts and outcomes of a crime, as well as delving deeply into the motivations and perceptions of its participants. Guilty Creatures takes us back to 2000, when real estate agent Mike Williams went duck hunting, supposedly alone on Lake Seminole. His wife, Denise, was at home with their baby daughter, but Mike didn't return that day, nor was there a trace of him at Lake Seminole. It seemed fortunate that, as time went on without a trace of her husband, that only 6 months before, he had taken out a $2 million life insurance policy. When Mike Williams was declared dead a year later, it was assumed he had fallen overboard and been eaten by alligators. Now that life insurance policy could make life easier for his widow and child. However, his mother, Cheryl Williams, never believed that her son's death was so simple. And across decades, she would continue to press for deeper investigation into what she thought was foul play. In 2005, Denise Williams remarried Brian Winchester, who, with his former wife, had been longtime friends of the Williamses. Winchester was also the agent who had sold Mike Williams the life insurance policy. Still, with constant lobbying to high government officials and taking out ads in the Tallahassee Democrat pressing for continued investigation of Williams' death, his mother, Cheryl Williams, remained convinced that justice had not been served. She became alienated from her granddaughter and was called crazy by Denise. But by 2012, the marriage between Brian Winchester and Denise Williams itself was falling apart. In 2016, Denise had filed for divorce. And it was then that Winchester, in a rage, abducted her and showed evidence that he may have been planning a murder-suicide. Denise talked him down and escaped, but she immediately contacted the police.
During the next year, Winchester would be arrested for the kidnapping and receive a sentence of 20 years in prison. Shortly thereafter, however, after so many years, the body of Mike Williams was finally found, uneaten by alligators but buried in a swampy muck alongside Lake Carr. It wasn't long before Denise Williams was arrested as well and charged with the murder of her husband. During her trial, Brian Winchester, her former husband, testified against her and also admitted that he had shot Mike Williams as he clung to a stump in the lake, then moved and buried his body near Lake Carr. The couple's motive: to eliminate Denise's husband and collect the insurance. Denise was sentenced to first life in prison, and later, when that sentence was vacated, to serving the 30-year sentence she had also received for conspiracy to commit murder. Author Mitika Brotman said in a telephone interview that she plunged into deep research through visits to Tallahassee, the homicide files, trial footage, court transcripts, and discovery documents associated with the case. The Sunshine Laws in Florida easily permitted this kind of access. She acknowledges a previous book about the case, Evil at Lake Seminole, by Stephen Epstein, as of invaluable help. I have made many attempts to contact both Denise, now incarcerated in the Florida Women's Reception Center, and Brian Winchester, held at the Wackala Correctional Institution, but have been unsuccessful. One may wonder, what is it that intrigues a true crime writer? Why this genre? I'm fascinated by the way people's minds work and what happens psychologically to people who commit terrible crimes, Brotman said. In this case, a murder remained covered for 16 years. Brotman said, what happened in the minds of Brian and Denise during those years? How did they justify the crime to themselves, especially since they were both devout Baptists? Did they repress and deny their involvement to such an extent that they really believed they had nothing to do with it? Brotman says she tries to get into the head of criminal perpetrators in her books, and now believes that there's nothing different about the psychology of a person who commits a crime, just that they experience all of the same emotions everyone else does, but more extreme. Basically, I believe that anyone is capable of murder in certain circumstances, even though the author is currently touring to promote her book. Soon she will return to Baltimore to resume her duties as a literature professor, where she teaches Edgar Allan Poe and Jane Austen. Interestingly, I don't read a lot of true crime, she said, preferring pro-war women's fiction. But while Brotman's personal taste goes light on tales about horrendous deeds, she hopes you will delve into the tale of a crime that kept Tallahassee wondering for decades. Brotman's page-turner was named one of the New York Times 19 nonfiction books to read this summer, praised as catnip for true crime aficionados. This article originally appeared on Tallahassee Democrat. Tallahassee true crime tale of Mike Williams' murder retold in new book.